internazionali, in particolare della European University Foundation. So let me switch to English for now. So if someone is not hearing properly, as I see that Paolo is signaling it in the chat. So let me, probably Paolo, you should reconnect the audio. Can you try again? Or maybe you just...
Io non sento nessuno.
We can hear you.
Ok, provo a uscire e rientrare.
Exactly. Okay, so we have to wait just a few minutes because we know that some people had troubles with one of the links that we have sent in the invitation. So now a new link has been sent, a new invitation has been sent. So, but let me introduce the speaker of this morning. But before that, let me greet Claudia Battista, Vice Director of GAR, that is here with us, and Enrico Fasanelli from INFN, and also the coordinator of the IDEM Technical Committee. So our first speaker, which is back again right now and should be able to hear us now.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh.
Thank you, Paolo.
Perfect. You have to promote me as presenter because the plus button.
Yes, sure.
Gone away.
Yeah, because you have joined again. So our first speaker is Paolo Smiraglia from AGID, which is the Italian agency on the digital identity, and Paolo will speak about the Italian IDAS node that he's also managing, as far as I understand.
Yeah, correct.
Yes, and so just before giving you the floor, Paolo, let me also introduce. Well, let me also tell 2 words about the agenda of this morning. So the other topics that will be covered will be, as you know from the program, the Erasmus Plus and the European Card Initiative, and also the GÉANT project, the project which GÉANT is participating, My Academic ID, that just finished last year in December. And after that, there will be a brief panel with some with our speakers and some university representatives to talk about the implications for the universities and research institutions with these new tools to manage the student mobility. So with that said, I'll give you the floor, Paolo. So if you can start your presentation.
Okay, so good morning to everyone. My name is Paolo Smiraglia, and today I will present you the Italian IDAS node. So, just a quick introduction about me. I was a cybersecurity researcher at Politecnico di Torino, and currently I'm an IT consultant at Agenzia per l'Italia Digitale. In this slide, you can find my email address, my GitHub page, and a QR code to my LinkedIn profile, just to keep in touch. Okay, today's presentation will cover mainly 3 aspects. So, an introduction about what the Italian IDAS node is. Then we will focus on what the Italian service provider have to know and have to do in order to interact with the Italian node. And finally, a very quick overview about what identity providers have to do. So, let's start. What the Italian node is. The Italian node is a bridge between the SPID and IDAS Federation. So this means that an Italian citizen can access European online services by using his own Italian credential like SPID or Carta d'identità elettronica. In the same way, a European citizen can access Italian online services by using his own national EID scheme, The full list of the notified scheme can be found in the link here in the slide. So for the sake of clarity, I will now present you how the IDAS login works. In particular, here we will see a scenario where an Italian citizen is accessing a Swedish service provider. So as Italian user, I will reach the Swedish portal and I initialize the login. Then the portal will ask me which is the authentication method I want to use. In this case, I will choose the IDAS login. In the next step, the Swedish portal will ask me which is my country, and this information will be used to forward me toward my national node. So here, as you can see from the flag in the top right corner, I'm on the Italian node, which is informing me that the Swedish node is requesting the following attributes. So in this case, I have to authorize the request. Once I've authorized it,
Paolo,
yeah,
can you
yeah.
hear me? We can't hear you anymore, or at least I can't.
Okay.
I don't know if someone else.
Where you lost me?
No, I hear loud and clear.
Oh,
No problem
okay.
for me.
It's my problem. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So we are in Italy, and the node is requesting us to choose how we want to
Paolo,
yeah?
Scusate, ma c'è un problema di audio, non riceviamo più l'audio improvvisamente. Perdona l'interruzione.
Okay. Can you hear me
Vediamo
now?
un momento che sta succedendo, ma...
Check.
Io continuo a sentire forte e chiaro.
Okay.
No problem for me.
Okay. Any other with problems? So I can hear you perfectly, all of you.
Okay.
I'm in the same situation. I can hear all people.
Here as
clearly.
well, I can hear everyone.
Okay. So I think...
Io sento benissimo, l'unico che sento molto male è Albrizio.
Okay. So let's try to proceed.
Yes?
Yes, please
Okay.
go ahead.
So we were in Italy, and the node is asking us if we want to be authenticated with speed or with carta d'identità elettronica. So after the authentication, the node will ask us for an additional confirmation, where in this case, he is saying us, are you sure to submit your personal attribute to the Swedish node? So in this case, we have to agree, and if so, we will reach back the Swedish portal where we resulted to be authenticated. So this is this is how the IDAS flow is. In the opposite scenario, so where a Belgian citizen is trying to access an Italian service, the process is quite the same. So the Belgian citizen will access an Italian service provider. He will choose the IDAS login. Then the Italian node will request his country, and with this information he is forwarded to his own node. Then he performs the authentication and everything is fine. So the Belgian node will ask for confirmation, and after that we reach the Italian service. So all of this is possible thanks to this high-level architecture. So in particular, we have on the left side the Italian speed service provider, while on the right side the Italian speed identity provider and carta d'identità elettronica. in the middle, we have the Italian node, which exposes toward the speed service provider a sort of virtual speed identity provider, while on the identity provider side, a virtual speed service provider. All the changes, adaptation, transformation that are required in order to interact with the IDAS are made transparently for the service provider and for the identity provider by the node. So now that we, before we end, the Italian node is the result of a European project, FICEP, first Italian cross-border IDAS proxy. Consortium was composed of Agenzia per l'Italia Digitale, Politecnico di Torino, InfoCert, and Telecom Italia. Okay, so now that we have clear in mind how the IDAS node works, let's start to go into the service provider tasks. So, before going technical, it is important to make clear what the service provider have to know. So the first aspect is about the IDAS attribute. In particular, they can be mandatory, they can be optional, and they can be related to natural and legal person. About mandatory attribute, they must be always requested, and they will always obtain a value. While optional attribute can be optionally requested as the characteristic, and can be answered by the member state with an empty or with a null value. So this is important because this aspect must be managed by a service provider. About natural person, the mandatory attribute are defined as family name, first name, date of birth, and person identifier, while optional attributes are birth name, place of birth, current address, and gender. And all of these attributes map on speed attribute as in the following. So as we can see, the mandatory attribute set have a full equivalent in the speed domain, while for the optional one, only 3 attributes can be converted in speed attribute. For legal person, the mandatory attribute set is composed by legal name and legal person identifier, while optional attribute set include legal address, VAT registration, tax reference, business code, and some other attribute was, I don't remember what the acronym means, sorry. Also, this attribute maps on speed as in this slide. In particular, the mandatory attribute set have a full equivalent in speed, while the optional attribute set for legal person has only 2 attributes that can be directly mapped in the speed domain. About the IDAS person identifier format, it is important to say that it is composed by 3 fields, which are separated by the /char. The first field contain the citizen country code, while the second one, the service provider country code. The third field contains an alphanumeric string that identifies the citizen according to the national rules. So as you can see in the slide, we have 2 examples for a Swedish citizen and for a Belgian citizen. And as you can see, the first part of the person identifier is quite the same, while the alphanumeric string is totally different. So in the first case, it can be an identification number, while the second one seems to be a digest of some values. About the format of person identifier, it is important to know it because if you receive the speed code from an IDAS authentication, it will follow the person identifier format. So as you can see, in the speed domain, the speed code is composed by two fields that include the identity provider identifier and the credential identifier. But as in the previous slide, in particular this one, we know that speed code maps on person identifier. So if we request the speed code from IDAS, it will have the person identifier format. So a service provider must be ready to manage both the formats. Okay, now we know what the service provider have to know. From the technical perspective, in order to interact with the node, a service provider have to federate another speed identity provider, which represents the virtual identity provider exposed by the node. So it means loading some SAML metadata, trust some X509 certificate, and implementing some user experience directives. So this is the first action. The second act, okay, so sorry for the duplicate slide. The second action is to define the IDA specific attribute consuming service within the service provider metadata. In particular, service provider have to define an attribute consuming service that represents the mandatory attribute set. As you can see in the slide, it includes the 4 attributes. Then he can define any other composition of attribute that must include the mandatory attribute set and any other optional attribute that have a mapping on speed and the IDAS. So if you create an attribute consuming service that includes an attribute that cannot be transformed in IDAS, the node will stop your request. The third action is about the criteria that is requested for the comparison of the level of authentication. Since the IDAS node just supports the minimum comparison, you have to specify in your authentication request the comparison minimum as in the snippet. The last and fourth action is about the correct management of authentication response that the service provider will receive from IDAS. In particular, they must be able to manage all the European char set, including, for instance, the Eastern Europe char set or the Greek alphabet. Then, as we briefly introduced in the past slide, they must be able to manage both the speed code formats, so the vanilla speed format and the IDAS format. Then they must be able to manage empty or null responses if optional attributes are requested. In particular, in this case, service provider can obtain a response with an empty or null value, or also the response cannot include the optional attribute that were requested. So in some cases, we had a problem with Italian service provider that were not able to manage this scenario. The last aspect is that service provider must be able to manage a multiple speed code for the same user. This is the scenario where a member state notified more than one EID scheme. So if this can be considered a problem for Italian service provider, you have to consider that Italy is presenting in Europe with 10 different unique person identifiers. This is because an Italian citizen may have a set of credentials from the 9 speed identity providers plus carta d'identità elettronica. And this is a problem that this is one of the problems in the IDES Federation. So how to manage multiple personal identifier for the same user. So from the technical perspective, we have done, then we move to a big problem. What about codice fiscale? There was a long discussion about management of codice, or about Italian codice fiscale in the IDES contest. And the final result is that the IDES can't manage it because it not include an attribute that is defined to transport this specific attribute. So if Italian service provider really needs this attribute, they have to implement a solution in order to obtain it. And this is also valid for any other attribute which is not included in the IDES attribute set. About that, we generally propose two proposals. So the first one, see that during the first login, a plain IDES authentication is performed. Then after the authentication, before going into the service provider will request in the form of declaration the codice fiscale attribute. Then, if needed, it can be verified in the back office, for instance. After that, this attribute is associated to the user profile, and during the next login, after the authentication performed with the IDES, the codice fiscale will be already in the user profile. This solution is also applied in other member states, like Sweden and Belgium, if I remember well. The second proposal, okay, is quite similar. So during the first login, the user make a first authentication. Then, after the successful authentication, the service provider generate and assign a fake codice fiscale that can be generated by using the obtained value and assign it to the user profile. So, as in the previous example, the following login will be performed by relaying on IDES for the authentication, and then all the extra attributes will be already present in the user profile. So, this is everything. Okay. If you need further help about service provider, you can use the help desk that we set up for the IDES node. You can send an email to the single point of contact for the node, or you can visit the official website of the IDES node. So, from the service provider side is everything. And about the identity provider, the integration is very simple because they just have to trust, okay, because they just have to trust another speed service provider, as you can see in the picture. So it means by loading a SAML metadata and trust some certificate. That's it. So, thank you for your attention, and if you have some questions, I'm here for you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Paolo. It was a very clear presentation. Really, thank you. I understood a lot of stuff that I was wondering about how this IDES node has been integrated. Yes, we can take a few questions. Let me just remind you that we will have a panel at the end of the whole session, but please, if you have any quick question now, just enable your audio and possibly the video and shout it, please. So I see that Angelo Furfaro has a question. Yeah, please go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Angelo Furfaro from University of Calabria, and I have some questions maybe someone may be very quick to answer. The first one is why the fiscal code is not used in the personal identifier. And the second question is about the solution you proposed to solve the issue about the fiscal code. And the question is why don't use attribute authority or some other form to retrieve the fiscal code after the IDES login, instead of have a self-declaration of putting some fake information in place of the fiscal code.
Okay, about why the fiscal code cannot be used, there was a long discussion at the beginning of the project about using the fiscal code as a personal identifier. And the problem is not technical, but is from the privacy point of view, because after a consultation with the Italian privacy officer, he told us you cannot use the fiscal code to identify user, also if we use it in a hashed way. So
I think this is not addressed well, this issue, because the fiscal code it is transmitted as an attribute, so the user may give its approval on the transmission of such attribute that contains such information.
No, sorry, the fiscal code is not transmitted via the IDES protocol. So in the solution we're proposing, the fiscal code is sent directly to the service provider.
Okay. Okay, but why not as the personal identifier? There is no privacy issue because the user may consent or not give his approval to the transmission of such an attribute.
No,
by the way, I understand.
It was a black hand from the head, so not a technical issue. Just a bureaucratic and privacy stuff.
But this was the technical issue you have to solve.
Sorry?
But this imply a new technical issue for the service providers, and you propose to do two solutions, but both solutions use some form of fake information.
About at first. About the two solutions we're proposing, we are not relying on an attribute authority because in the current status, IDES doesn't define the concept of attribute authority. So we can introduce it in the Italian architecture, but we cannot consider it as an IDES aspect. So we are working on it, but in the current status, the attribute authority is just future work related to the IDES.
Okay, so we don't have a solution for identifying a user in a safe way, because the user may put a fake information on the fiscal code field, so it is an information which is not certified.
Yes,
so actually at this time we don't have a solution to have an information which is certified.
Okay, but if you use the fiscal code or any other attribute just as a lookup key, you can also not verify it, or you can simply check if you already have a value. If you need it to associate the user to some tax stuff or something like that, you can verify it in the back office, for instance, by relying on the API exposed by Agenzia delle Entrate, I think.
Okay, maybe we can discuss more in the panel.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
You're welcome. I put on the chat the URL of the service of the Spanish service I presented. So you,
Okay,
if
thank
you
you.
want, if you want to pay taxes in Sweden, you can.
Just to check how it works. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks a lot, Angelo, for the questions that were very, very, very interesting. And there is also another quick question, I think, in the chat from
Lorenzo
Lorenzo.
Iannuzzi, okay.
Yes, please.
As a corporate distribution service provider, okay, no, because in the way how IDES think is that each member state can do whatever he wants at his home. So about Italy, you can find the full list of IDES enabled service provider on the IDES Node website, and also in the URL I put slide. Let's me. So here, if you go to eid.gov.it/servizi, you can find all the service providers that are currently enabled with the IDES login. About other member states, they can have a page like us, but it is not mandatory. So you have to be lucky and find a page like that. You're welcome.
Thanks a lot, Paolo. I think we can move on to the next session, and maybe there will be more time for questions and discussion in the panel later. So thank you, Paolo.
Thank you.
So let me now introduce you Claudia Peritore from the Agenzia IDEM, that is the Italian agency responsible for the management of the Erasmus Plus program. Hello, Claudia.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Thanks a lot for having joined us. And Claudia is responsible for the Erasmus Plus at the Agenzia IDEM, and she's also the ESCI one of the two ESCI digital officers, so for Italy. So if I understood it well, the people responsible for actually making the Erasmus Going Digital initiative a reality also for Italy. So with that said, I'll just the floor to Claudia.
Okay, thank you again, Davide, and thank you for the invitation to the Italian National Agency in this workshop. As you said, yes, I am in charge of the higher education unit in the agency, and I am one of the two digital officers in Italy. What does it mean? That the European Commission has asked the network of national agencies in the program, in the countries participating to the program, to nominate digital officers who are not really technical people, or rather people that will be in charge of informing and promoting the European Student Card Initiative in their own countries. And digital officers have been nominated not only in national agencies, but also, and most importantly, in the national authorities, that is, in the ministries, in order to stress the relevance and importance of this digital initiative for the Erasmus program. And today I will briefly explain what does it mean Erasmus Going Digital in terms of impact it has on the work of the international relations offices of the universities and on students, and generally speaking on the volume of mobility. I will briefly present the national agency in Italy. IDEM, my national agency, has been nominated by now two ministries, the Ministry for Education and the one for University and Research, as competent for the implementation and management of the Erasmus program for these sectors, that is the school education, adult education, and higher education. It means that we, in Italy, manage the program with around 280 institutions that are universities, but also polytechnics, of course, and institution of arts, the one belonging to the fine arts and music conservatories, but also smaller institutions focusing on the language competencies, and the technical institutions that recently have been a lot discussed in Italy, the so-called Istituti Tecnici Superiori ITS. This whole is the family in the Erasmus program, and all of the institutions participating to the program are accredited institutions. That means, as you can read, are charter holders, ECE holders. That means that the institutions have agreed to participate to the program, have asked the Commission to be accredited to share the opportunities of the program to their students and staff, because in the Erasmus program not only students are engaged but also teachers and more generally the staff of the institution. So they are holders of this Erasmus Charter for higher education. A group that is still growing, not only 279 are holders, but more we expect to be holders in the future, since we cover more or less all the universities in Italy, but still some smaller institutions can ask to take part to the program. A program that, as you may know, is being renovated. We are waiting for the formal approval of the next Erasmus program 21-27. We have been waiting for it for long, and we wait for the formal regulation in maybe this summer. But a political and financial agreement has been already reached, and the budget has been importantly increased for the next 7 years. It means that we will benefit of 26 billion of euros for the activities within the Erasmus program, carried out by the 33 participating countries, because in Erasmus not only the 27 member states do take part, but also the so-called EFTA countries, that is Norway, Liechtenstein and Ireland, and also Serbia, Macedonia, the North Republic of Macedonia and Turkey. So 33 countries that will, with their almost 5,000 institutions, that mean charter holders institution, will realize mobilities of students and staff and cooperation projects among them. A budget increase that substantially answers to the policy priorities of the future Erasmus program, which are of course the policy priorities of the European Union overall, that is social inclusion, digital innovation and a greener future. All the sectors in as regards the Erasmus program, all the educational sectors, education and training sectors have been called upon to answer to these policy priorities. And for social, I'm sorry that my slides are in Italian, but anyway, we'll try to share this message. Social inclusion in the broad sense of making it possible for all potential institutions and organizations active in the education and training sector to benefit of the opportunities of the program, to benefit of the opportunities to cooperate and collaborate among themselves. And social inclusion, of course, in the sense of more support to disadvantaged categories, but also in the sense of a simplified access to the program opportunities. And it goes, of course, together with digital innovation and digital solutions to manage the whole administrative process linked to the mobilities, but also linked to the exchange in an online and secure way, the exchange of data. But I'd like also to give some numbers as far as mobilities are concerned, because we have to bear in mind this operation is quite important, considering the high volume of students and people that are moving thanks to the Erasmus program. 70,000 are the students that have been hosted in Italy and that took part to the Erasmus mobility from our universities. These are the last closed data. That means in a moment, in a pre-COVID period. Of course, now the situation is quite strange to talk about mobility in this particular emergency situation. But in the last closed year, 70,000 students moved to Italy and from Italy. And out of them, almost 45,000 are the students that from Italy took part to the Erasmus program and have been managed and that means selected and received support from their home universities, especially from Alma Mater in Bologna, from Padova University, La Sapienza, University of Torino, Federico II in Naples, and Polytechnic of Milan. These are the first 6 universities in Italy that manage a high volume of mobilities. In a general context, since the very beginning of the program, 500,000 students, but we should say citizens, have benefited of the program, because since the beginning of the program back in 1987, that means more than 30 years ago, people that are now in the workforce have benefited of the program, and 500,000 is a great number, is a big number, and these numbers increased in the last years of the programs, especially in the last 2014-2020 period of the program. And such cooperations have been underwent, especially with Spain, France, Germany, UK and Portugal. We won't cover mobilities to and from UK, unfortunately, anymore within the Erasmus program, but the stronger partner is and has always been Spain. In the future, such numbers will be revamped. The budget increase we've discussed before will serve to reach the inclusion goal. That means that potentially all students shall benefit of a period abroad of study or traineeship. Within that 45,000 students that I said before went to mobilities, a large part of them selected the Erasmus mobility for purpose of studies, not of traineeship in an enterprise, and this is an important hint for the digital transformation of the program that will be dedicated to the mobility for study at first, which is the larger group of mobilities. And in 21-27, such numbers are expected to grow further. COVID notwithstanding, we know that students are really enthusiastic and are sending their applications already for 2021 as soon, and hopefully they will soon start to be mobile again. So in the next program, as I said, the volume of mobility will grow, and the European Student Card Initiative will serve to reach this goal, which is a policy priority, because the European Student Card Initiative answers to this strong policy mandate to really reinforce the international cooperation among universities, to reinforce mobility of students in order to make it possible for every student in Europe to benefit of the best quality of the higher education institutions in our countries, to reach the goals of the initiative of the European universities, which is a different and connected initiative, strategically important as well, that sees the foundation of a network of European universities that will cooperate in a stronger way, integrating not only their course offers, but their campuses, most of all their strategies, their long-term strategies to form the workforce of the future, and almost at least 50% of their students should be mobile to reach the goal of the European education area that will be a reality by 2025, in which all students shall have a period of study abroad in their academic path, where students, so citizens, shall speak at least 2 foreign languages other than their own mother tongue. All these policy goals and commitments have been agreed upon by universities when obtaining and signing the charter I've spoken about before. Because the accreditation to participate to the Erasmus program is signed by the rectors of the universities, and they have agreed to undertake the necessary step to implement digital mobility management in line with the standards of the European Student Card Initiative. That will be a reality thanks to the work of all the programs and projects connected to it, such as the Erasmus Without Paper and the European Student Card. So again, the policy mandate is really strong. The European Student Card Initiative, that is this big umbrella that will guide the digital transformation of the higher education, and starting with the digital transformation of mobility, is quite strong. And the European Student Card Initiative has been comes again in many different communication of the European Commission, not only in the one aiming at the European education area by 2025, but also in the digital education action plan, because it will create and give the necessary infrastructure and mechanisms and components to realize concretely the interinstitutional cooperation among universities in Europe. The last important policy document is the Rome Communiqué of last November 2020, within the Bologna process. You know, this intergovernmental process in the field of education has again highlighted the importance of the European Student Card Initiative for the next 10 years to ensure the realization of the digital transformation of higher institution. In line with the idea to, again, make it possible to for the Erasmus program to be inclusive as wider as possible, and that is to revamp and strengthen the number of mobilities that can be supported. Of course, this idea and this goal have to be backed by a parallel process of simplification, of digitalization, and to ensure this, it is important that all the initiatives are interconnected within each other, among each other. You see here the most important projects and initiatives linked to the European Student Card one, which is the Erasmus Without Paper project, the Erasmus Plus mobile app, the My Academic ID project, the European Student Card project, which is already closed and will be developed by the EDSSI one, and all institutions shall then start now, or actually should have already started the internal evaluation of their own strategy to respond to these priorities and to act within this interconnected new environment, because it is not possible to disregard this process of simplifying the administrative procedure of management of mobilities. We have talked before about the Bologna universities. Bologna is the first university in Europe in terms of number of students that participate in the Erasmus mobilities. So students of Bologna University that go abroad, but also in terms of numbers of students hosted within the Erasmus program. So it is a volume of about 4,000 students coming and going from the University of Bologna, and all the offices has to select the students that answer the public call to take part of the Erasmus program. More or less, Bologna University received 9,000, 10,000 applications, and they need to select them and then contractualize the student to give them the money, the European money to support their mobility, have to monitor them, have to formalize all the official documents required for equality mobility. First of all, the online learning agreement, and then all institutions have to report these mobilities to the national agency. So the entire cycle of management of a mobility is quite strong, and it is very important that it is as simple as possible for the institutions, especially when number of mobilities will grow. So 2021 will, of course, be a transitional year. OLA is the acronym for the online learning agreement. The learning agreement is the study program the student has to follow when on mobility. The study program, which is an official document agreed upon the three parties involved. That means the participant, so the student, but also the two institutions, the home institution and the hosting institution. And starting from this June 2021, the learning agreement will be exchanged among these three parties only digitally. That means that the learning agreement needs to be connected and linked to the course offer of the home institution of the student, in order to guarantee the closure then of the process at the end with the registration in the student career of what he or she has gained and during the mobility, considering that the study mobility abroad is an integral part of the academic career of a student. So the very important date is then June 2021. June 2021 will the moment when the learning agreement will be exchanged only digitally for mobilities that are managed under the new program, 2021 program. And of course, given the flexible initiative, it will be a transition year, that we won't have a click day, but it will be a transitional passage to the new system. According to the roadmap that the European Commission has, of course, revised together with the national agencies after considering the impact of COVID, but it has not been extended in order to guarantee the digital transformation of the program. It will be, so these new instruments will be introduced gradually, starting with the learning agreement and then with the interinstitutional agreement, which is another official document, fundamental one for the mobilities, that structures formally the cooperation between two institutions, and it has to be agreed digitally by the two institutions. So what it means, the digital transformation for the universities participating in the program now are engaged in testing these new platforms and services. The national agencies and the national ministry is there to help, and we have in Italy we are working with 4 working groups formed by higher education institutions, dealing with the test of the OLA of the interinstitutional agreement, grouped according to the scenario they are working in this new ecosystem. That means that institutions can participate to the Erasmus without paper network in different ways according to the system they have in place to manage the mobilities, and of course it depends on the number of mobilities, on the volume of the mobilities they need to manage. So it is really important that not only the international relations offices that within the universities are the one that usually manage mobilities, shall now evaluate and discuss with their IT services to reach the new, to reach a new strategy, to reach actually a new planning of the management of the mobilities, given these new instruments and new platforms that will be used European-wide. So the digital transformation is ongoing. We have started as national agency this discussion with our universities back in 2018, when we started the first steps in the Erasmus without paper. But it is important to bear in mind that international relations office, of course, are not technical people and are not expected to become technical, but are expected to talk within their IT services in their institutions. So at the moment, as I said, tests are ongoing on the OLA and on the interinstitutional agreement through the Erasmus Without Paper network. And the connection to the Erasmus Without Paper network can happen in two different ways, according to the scenario an institution belongs to, because the Erasmus Without Paper Erasmus Without Paper has a dashboard that is supposed to be used directly by the institutions that do manage a small number of mobilities without any specific tools. So they can directly use the dashboard, which is connected to the Erasmus Plus mobile app and to the online learning agreements. On the contrary, the bigger institutions that manage a bigger volume of mobilities through their own systems or through system provided by third-party providers can connect to the Erasmus Without Paper networks through the APIs that have been developed by the European Commission, by the European University Foundation. The connection to the Erasmus Without Paper network actually happens when the official documents underlying the mobilities are there. I said 2021 is a transitional year. It's a transitional year on different levels because we are all engaged in recovering from the COVID crisis. So it is a transitional year within our internal organization, but it's also Erasmus-wise a transitional year because we are moving into a different program, which will not revolutionize completely what we have seen, but will introduce new format of mobilities, blended or virtual mobilities, so as to reach the goal of inclusion, so as to make it possible for institutions to really cooperate more and to put together their offers. So transitional year to a new program, and in practical it means also to use new documents, new templates that have to be first of all officially agreed upon, then will be developed in a technical ways, and then institutions, third-party providers will have to work on the connection to these new documents through the APIs that have been developed. And it means an involvement of human resources, of financial resources within institutions to reach this goal. There are many sources of information. The Erasmus Without Paper Competence Centers with its Developers Hub includes a lot of information, also technical ones. As I said before, international relations offices are not expected to be technical, to develop technical abilities, but therefore there are important resources for IT offices there in the competence centers, and in this link you can find all the documentation that is available. The situation for the smaller institutions that do use directly the dashboard is different because they will only have to wait until the dashboard, the Erasmus Without Paper dashboard, is ready to be used. All this is connected with the OLA, the online learning agreement, and is connected to the single entry point for students, because the Erasmus without paper through APIs or through the dashboard is the entry point for institutions, while the Erasmus Plus mobile app is the single entry point for students. So students will really manage their mobility through this app. That has been revised also in its visual identity, and that will guide them to, through all their mobilities, before the mobilities, during the mobility, and afterwards. Before the mobility, it means when the student has to fill in and formally get formal approval of the documentation needed for its mobility, his or her mobility. First of all, with the starting with the online learning agreement, and students will access the Erasmus Plus app through a login, and preferably with the EduGain credentials. So we have here again a system with different speed, because there are institutions that provide students with academic credentials which are EduGain compatible, let's say compatible, while other institutions actually do not participate to the EduGain federations. We are in the process of evaluating, of mapping the Italian context, and the majority of universities that realize mobility, so most of the students, of the 45,000 students we spoke about before, belong to institutions that do use EduGain credentials. A smaller number of mobilities are of students coming from institutions that do not yet or will not use EduGain compatible credentials. And at the moment, the Erasmus Plus mobile app can be used also with Google credentials that will be anyway dismissed in August 2021, but at European level an alternative solution is being evaluated. And OLA 3.0 is the new version of the template of the learning agreement, and is the document that in this moment, in this phase, puts together institutions and students within the Erasmus without paper network. And of course, in all this process, the authentication and identification of students needs to be secure and is of utmost importance. So the evaluation in this moment that within institution is ongoing, is on how to ensure that the students can really be identified and authenticated through the academic credentials. In some cases it is possible, in some other not, and for this reason there is the evaluation within the My Academic project, and maybe it will be discussed later, of a new solution to cater for those institutions that still do not participate to this to the inter-federation, so as to reach the goal of the European student identifier that will be unique for that student, so as to make it possible for him or for her to access to the Erasmus mobilities, to the Erasmus services, but not only, also in general to academic services, because the digital transformation, the process of digital transformation goes beyond the Erasmus mobility. Given the policy mandate we talked about before, it is envisaged, the digital transformation is envisaged to reach the European education area, where students will be able to be seamless mobile, where the cooperation and exchange of data among institutions will be secure and easy. Here you can find some useful resources. There is also the page in the bottom of the National Agency website, where we spread all the information and promotion about events that we organize or third party organize about the digital innovation in the program. So thank you for your attention, and I'm here for any question you may have.
Thank you, Claudia. Thanks. for the very comprehensive overview of all the aspects of this very wide, because there are many different steps and components and moving parts, and I'm always impressed when I hear this you that really understand every aspect of this. So if we have, I don't know if you have any question.
I cannot really hear you very well, Davide.
Yeah, no, someone is saying that again. Okay, can you hear me now? I don't know if.
Sì, Davide, ti sentiamo, ma ti abbiamo sentito a tratti per un po'.
Okay, I was breaking a bit. So am I any better now? Can you hear me?
I think so.
Clearly? Great,
Oh, yeah.
thank you. Thanks. So I don't know if we have any quick question right now. Otherwise, we can just move to the next presentation, which will follow very nicely Claudia, which is basically the interaction between the Erasmus Plus program and EduGain. So I will Joachim and then Licia Florio from Giant University, by Claudia as the organization responsible for the tools that we will use for making the Erasmus Plus program digital. The floor to you, Joachim.
Thanks a lot,
And
Davide. I'm not sure I understood everything because it has been, again, a bit on and off in terms from the sound, but I think I got the overall message. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting us to join the IDEM days and to present the work that we have been doing from the side of the European University Foundation and GEON on the topic. So my name is Joachim Wissling. I'm program manager at the UF. I don't have a technical background, technical expertise. I've been managing some of these projects that we will be talking about today. So to make this presentation also more interesting, I'm joined by Licia Florio, who will, I guess, I'm sure, present herself a bit when she's taking over the presentation. So I was covered by already quite some points by Claudia, but the idea here and the invitation here for today is to introduce you to the work that is happening in between Erasmus Plus program, Erasmus Plus related tools, and, well, EduGain, because that's what I guess is also the main dish for today. So if the slides are moving, a quick introduction, and Claudia again covered quite some ground here, so thank you very much for that. The program exists already since quite some time. What is important to note that is at the European level we have over 5,500 higher education institutions that do take part in the Erasmus Plus program. And I think from the latest statistics in 2019, we had over 330,000 students taking part in a mobility program in the field of higher education. And that is, of course, a considerable number, both for the students moving at European level, but also for the number of higher education institutions that take part in this process. And I think Claudia also mentioned it, that, well, we have a new program that is going to come up with a new budget, an increased budget. We don't know exactly how this will look like with the number of students moving. But as you can see, since 2014, there has been a gradual growth of, well, budget one side, but also in the number of students that do apply for going abroad with the Erasmus Plus program. And, well, politically speaking, from what I understand from the political initiatives, we do expect this to grow, which makes it even more important for this digitalization process to take place, because, of course, with increasing flows of mobile students, we also have an increase of data transactions between higher education institutions to actually enable these flows of mobility between higher education institutions. And we also see that, of course, universities, higher education institutions have invested via their own IT teams in their own IT information systems to manage these mobilities, to manage the different steps in these mobilities. Some higher education institutions have actually bought commercial systems. Some are thinking of investing right now. So I think it's only the right time that we actually start looking into how to make this sort of coherent and, well, interoperable. I think that's the key word here. Something else maybe I wanted to mention quickly is that the Erasmus Plus program as such has nowadays 33 program countries in Europe that take part in the Erasmus Plus program, but there's also a global outlook for the Erasmus program. So the political will from the side of vision, as far as I understand the communications, is that this global dimension is also set to grow, which also makes the digitalization efforts even more important, so that we sort of nail this and manage this properly within our continent, and then are able also to connect to other information systems outside of the continent. The European Student Card Initiative, I think it was presented in all the different details, so I'll probably not go into great detail here. One thing I might say is that it is a bottom-up initiative. I think it's important to know that all the projects that sort of compose this European Student Card have been started through Erasmus Plus funded projects, or also Connecting Europe Facility funded projects, and have been tested, prototyped, improved, and we have come together between different projects to see how we can move a step ahead, how we can make these projects, of course, interoperable, which makes the process, I think, interesting, because it's community driven. It is driven by the higher education community, by the universities themselves. But of course, it makes the process also a bit complicated, because we have to coordinate in between different initiatives. We have to coordinate in between university partnerships. We have to coordinate with the European Commission, with the national agencies, with you, the educating community, with partners like Géant, very important in this field. So it makes the process maybe a bit longer than it would be if it would be just a top-down approach. But I think it makes the process maybe more to the point, making sure that the deliverables are actually mature enough to actually, well, meet the goals and the needs of the higher education world. If we would summarize the European Student Card Initiative, I think in a nutshell, it is about enabling students, and that there I put the quote from the website of the European Student Card Initiative, to identify and register themselves electronically at higher education institutions in Europe when moving abroad for studies. And I think that is what is important, is that right now, well, you still need to go and show your ID or your student cards. You need to fill out paperwork, present it to the International Relation Office, to the housing service, whatever student service that you need to go to, receive the learning agreements via email and send it back maybe via post. I mean, it is sort of a not very much student-friendly process that we're working in. And I think one thing that is worth mentioning here as well, this overall political initiative, the European Student Card Initiative of the European Union, is called the European Student Card Initiative. And there is the student card component of that initiative, that is true. But there is also, of course, all the component which is related to the student mobility, the Erasmus Plus tools as such, the Erasmus Without Paper network, and so on and so forth. So there is, it shouldn't just be put into the box of student cards, but no, there's actually quite a lot in terms of student information systems and authentication and identification that needs to be talked about in the context of this initiative. Talking about the projects, and again, thank you very much, Claudia, for the very nice overview and introduction, so I can go through this faster and leave the more interesting parts of the presentation to Licia. The first component and pillar in terms of project is Erasmus Without Paper. Erasmus Without Paper, and the scheme might be a bit too small, and you will receive the PDF of the presentation afterwards, so you'll be able to check it out, allows higher education institutions to be registered in a registry, and the registry is telling them where to send what data based on the use case that they're currently trying to perform. So if a university wants to send, for example, a list of outgoing students to a partner institution, it's going to go and ask the registry, where is the information system of that partner institution located? The registry is going to tell that information, and then your local information system is going to send that information to the partner institution. So we have basically a network where we're connecting higher education institutions via this registry and via, of course, a standard data model to enable these APIs and the communication between these existing information systems. So this part of the cloud that we have here represents higher education institutions that would have their own information systems. But there is also a part of this cloud where you have, well, higher education institutions that use a consortium that provide them an information system to manage their student mobilities. You also have up on the actually top right corner here, commercial solutions that are provided for higher education institutions. They should also be connected to this Erasmus Without Paper network, and they're doing the work to do so. And then you have also the Erasmus Without dashboard that Claudia mentioned that is here. That is for higher education institutions that don't necessarily have the funding to invest into their own system or buy a system. So they have a cloud-based tool where they can fulfill the main use cases to exchange this data there. Not everything here on this scheme is in production. Some of these elements here will be moved into production in the context of the European Digital Student Service Infrastructure project, the EDSSI project that just started about 6 months ago and is looking into scaling up this infrastructure as much as possible so that we meet the digital roadmap that Claudia mentioned as well. Another element here, the online learning agreement project, which was initiated, I think, back in 2014, went through different iteration processes, and it allows now, I think, at a great deal of maturity for students to go online, prepare the learning agreements, and sign that learning agreement online with the home university and the host university. And therefore, sort of removing the need for email communication flows and having each higher education institution trying to manage these learning agreements or this list of learning agreements on an Excel file. This learning agreement platform is linked with the Erasmus dashboard. It is set as well, of course, to become fully interoperable in the context of the Erasmus Without Paper network, so that if you're a higher education institution that has their own information system for handling learning agreements, you will be able to continue using your own system and exchange the data with this platform for the higher education institutions that use this platform. Then we have the Erasmus Plus mobile app, which was presented already as being the single entrance point to the Erasmus Plus program for the students. It was launched in the context of the 30th anniversary of the Erasmus Plus program in 2017. And this year, well, actually last year, 2020, time is flying, it underwent a complete overhaul and it was launched in January 2020. Here you have a tweet of Commissioner Maria Gabriel about the launch. So I'll invite you as well to take a look. You can access it on the two major mobile platforms, but also on the web part. I think the link should be on the file itself. So when you will have the PDF, you will be able to click on it. The point with all these different initiatives is that in Erasmus Without Paper, we're linking information systems with Erasmus Plus mobile app and the online agreement. We're building, again, a set of different information systems. But for all of them, sort of the common challenge is that we need to know who is connecting to a given service and what their home university is, so that we can actually improve, well, the user experience, the student experience of this, and we can also reduce the work from on the side of the higher education institution to have to go and check, is that my student? Is it really the student that the student is claiming to be? Is it, from my institution? And this is why we actually said, well, we need to move ahead building MyConic ID. And a bit more than 2 years ago, we sat down with colleagues from the European Student Card project, actually, Jean as well, Licia at that point, I think we got to meet for the first time, and to build a solution where we would start sharing identification and the sharing of attributes that would allow us to smoothen this process. And now I'm handing over to you, Licia.
Thanks, Joachim, for the presentation. Maybe you'll have to operate my slides. I don't see how to do that, but you can do that. Perfect. My name is Licia Florio, and I've been working for several years for GÉANT. I'm here to represent this time not strictly the GÉANT project, but the work that we are doing as GÉANT community and together with the National Research and Education Network to support student mobility. MyConic ID was part of these activities. It was a project funded via the CEF program to support the digitalization, let's say, of at least part of the services, what I would call the core services of Erasmus+. Next, please. Yeah, thank you. The project has finished. It ended in December 2020, and it had two main outcomes. One was that my academic ID delivered an identity and access management platform to enable electronic access to Erasmus Plus services, and we'll see more in details what these services are, in a federated manner, or what also the Commission calls the one and only principle. So basically avoiding students and users to have to log in and have multiple logins for each application. And the other part of the project was about defining an European student identity EID scheme for higher education that builds on European student identifier, which was previously defined into another project, European Student Card. Luckily, we did manage to achieve both of these very important objectives, and actually in what I will consider a very short time frame, because the project only ran for 1.5 years. And as Joachim has pointed out, we had to discuss with different parties that have different understanding, different vocabularies, but at the end, I think we all wanted one thing, and that was to solve the main problem at hand. Next, please. You can see here the academic ID identity and access platform. So the red box is this IAM platform, and you can see that the platform connects to the Erasmus Plus services. So, and Joachim and Claudia have gone over some of those in any case. The dashboard, the online learning agreement, PhD Hub, and the Erasmus Plus Hub. How the platform works, it provides basically a single point of integration for all these services and supports a different number of identities providers that are made available via EduGain. In addition, as part of the, well, it was in scope with the call, but was certainly one of the objectives to allow as many user online as possible. So the platform also has a bridge that enables students to use their EIDs, as you have heard from the previous presentation. If students have an EID that is EIDAS compatible, they can still log in and via these services via my academic ID. Next, please. And a couple of things to maybe mention. The platform was launched in November 2020, so it's fairly young. And if you look in the tiny fonts, you can see the list of attributes that are required. These attributes are really required by the service providers. Those are not attributes that we have decided by chance. Those are the absolute minimum set of attributes that the service provider of Erasmus Plus need to be able to deliver the service to the user. In addition to those attributes, we have also looked at the ways to uniquely identify users in the moment in which they log in through different systems, and in the moment in which universities have to correlate data and exchange the data between each other. You can see here the screenshot of the online, basically the online learning agreement. In the moment in which you click login with EduGain, you will be sent you will see basically this interface. And then the rest is pretty much business as usual for many students that have used federated access for all other access to all kinds of services. I left here also the different social IDs. This is really at the discretion of the service providers. The aim, most of the users come in via Google, and the aim is also to slowly move away from Google without cutting out people from the services. So there is a deadline, and we'll try to stick to that, but we look for the best possible option for the students at the end. Next, please. one of the things that it happens here, and that is maybe possibly one of the aspects to look more in detail, is that normally students will have to register on My Academic ID. So users that have already access to the Erasmus services, they know they are registered on the service, and now they are confronted with an additional registration, which is meant for them to register once and for all on the platform, and then everything is basically taken care of. This is a fairly simple process. It requires really a very limited number of information. So I have to say that things went pretty smooth, because we only received we received probably one ticket per day from students, and maybe are asking why they to do that. But for most of them, they just fly through and everything works pretty smoothly. Next, please. Thinking. You see also the URL if you wanted to see more. And I will not say a lot about the EDAS bridge, but because I mean, for the purpose of this presentation, it's not the most important part. But this was something that, in the context of EduGain, we were looking at for quite some time. And Davide, that has been involved into this, can say more if needed. The point is that it was for us also kind of a moving target. Maybe we were a bit too early in times. I'm talking about 3-4 years ago. But in the moment in which we managed to get in touch with EDAS people at the Commission, all people moved around and we were left without contacts, but with a work plan that we had agreed to work on, but we didn't know how to do. And finally, with My Academic ID, we managed to, I don't know, maybe everything came together, but this was also a priority for the Commission to create this integration between EduGain and EDAS, and we managed finally to get in touch with the right people. We had support also at the Commission, the officer that was responsible. Luckily, he moved once everything was done, but he was there responsible for EDAS at the Commission level. And we worked together with SUNET, the Swedish National Research and Education Network, mostly because SUNET is not only operated Research and Education Identity Federation, but they are also the operator of the EDAS node for Sweden, which means we could have direct access to those people that could do the operations. We could have access to the test environment, and eventually via them we could push things via the Swedish EDAS node into production. So this bridge is now in production. You have seen how EDAS works already. There is a small catch to that everything has to go via the EDAS node, which means that at some point a student will be confronted with a Swedish page asking the student to identify their country where they come from to log in with their ID. It's a small price to pay for the time being, but we covered a lot of ground already, and discussion is ongoing within the Commission and the Member States with the EDAS Cooperation Network to find a better solution for that. But, you know, those discussions take quite some time, also because I can imagine that this is not the highest priority for the Member States at this point in time. Next. Again, just to reinforce why are we doing this, we are trying really to collect reliable sources of information from the two main infrastructures in Europe, EDAS and EduGain. And we are seeing that maybe because of COVID, of also member states having to do more activities online, we see that the number of EDAS compliant EIDs is also increases for normal citizens, let's say, not only for those that were really in need. So we are hoping that we can rely more and more on EDAS EIDs going forward. Next. About the other component, the student EAD that was in scope. What is a student EAD? There has been, I don't know, maybe we chose a name that was a bit confusing because people were wondering whether they had to create yet another EAD with my academic EAD, and this was never the intentions. On the contrary, we wanted to leverage existing EADs that students had already. And by doing this, we created an identifier that is new, but this all happens in a transparent way for the students. So the main purpose here, you see, is that each student has to be uniquely identified across organizational and national boundaries. This identifier has to be persistent, at least for the period of time that the student is on mobility. The identifier should be the same for all services that are involved in student mobility, otherwise it will be a little bit tricky to identify the same user. And we want this to be protocol neutral because at the moment our infrastructure, particularly for EduGain, rely very much on SAML, but we really don't know what happens going forward. So we wanted to have to define specs that are not really depending on the protocol. Although for the time being, SAML and OpenID Connect will be used. And we wanted to find a way to transport this identifier in a neutral way. Should be the same no matter how it is transported. So all this required a lot of meetings. Next, please. And we came up with this masterpiece that you see on your screen, and this is the updated version of the European Student Identifier, which was published in September 2020. We decided, well, after a long consideration, we agreed to use SHAC as the way to encode the identifier. And there are reasons for that. First of all, SHAC personal unique code fit most of the requirements that we had, well, pretty much all of them. And already we discovered that the universities that are participating in student mobility are already familiar with SHAC. Many of them are already using SHAC home organization, at least for student mobility purposes. So it was something already known, already available, that fit the bill, so we decided to go for that. We had a long discussion with federations in EduGain to understand if choosing this format will pose any problem. And we were told that this is possible, it can be done. We are not saying this is the perfect solution. Possibly after a while we will look at alternatives, but for the time being, we have started rolling this out and it is working at the moment. Next. You saw the specification, how they are done, and they allow for two different implementations, for instance. There are countries where the student identifier is managed centrally. For sure, this country is Croatia, for instance. There are other countries, which is most of the countries, where the identifier is managed at the institution level. And you see, this is an example I took the University of Bologna, not by chance, because they were really very quick. Already in December, they had already prepared and worked to release the European Student Identifier. So it is something possible, and if you want to know more, you can talk to the University of Bologna, because they say that pretty much in 1 week they have everything sorted out. So kudos for them. Next. So where are we now? I say the project has finished, but it doesn't mean that the work has finished. On the contrary, the work for us has in fact just started, because we have now a very ambitious plan. My academic at the IM platform is in production. You can see some deadlines there. The first service that was connected to the platform was the online learning agreement, which was in December, right, Joachim, 2020. And then we started to look at other services. So how do we work now that my academic AD project is finished? Next. We we work by another project, and we are connecting other services already. The next in line is the Erasmus Plus app, which was connected in January 2021. This is something we got some statistics for you, because when you say it's production, what does it mean? It's production. There are 10 users, there are how many students, but we were actually quite surprised by this number, because if you think we are in COVID, people are pretty much grounded, and the platform, as I said, is very young, and there are already more than 10,000 students that are accessing and are getting online there. You can see the number of IDPs here, 600 IDPs, so again, good representation, 31 countries, and actually you can have a look at the countries. You see that Italy is doing well, although France is in the pole position, I would say, and followed by Germany. But Italy is actually, there has been a lot of interest in Italy and a lot of participation. And a lot of extra work for Davide and Gar and Claudia, but I hope for a good result. If we look a little bit where the students come from, 8,000 more than 8,000 students are coming in via EduGame, which is excellent. This is indeed what we want. Obviously, the second in line is Google, as to be expected, also because some students were already using Google, so they continue to use that. And what is surprised is that slowly but steadily, IEDAS students, users are also coming in. We have 31. So I think this is a fairly good result.
Davide just did.
Oh, yes, indeed.
32.
Yes, indeed. Although he's not really a student. But anyway, next. So, as I said, we are now getting the work ahead via the EDSSI project. Joachim mentioned that. The project started in September, but we are now getting very much into the busy period of the project, and we will have funding for another 2 years for that. One of the things that I think Claudia went over that we are aware that there are universities and there are students that cannot basically participate. It's because maybe they cannot run NIDPs, maybe because they don't want to join the National Federation for whatever, maybe they cannot join a National Federation, so there is a variety of use cases. So what are we looking at is the solutions, what can we do to make sure that this group is not left out? And you can see, as I said, so we are working basically on parallel tracks, build everything that we can to make sure that everybody can get online, and on the other end, push gently those that can get online on EduGame to do so, and to start to release the necessary attributes, as well as the SHACOM organization, and eventually the ESI by August 2021. Next. So what are the next steps for the higher education institutions? Well, actually it's not so complicated, because once a university has set up an IDP, once university is already participating in IDEM, in this case, there is also the only thing left to do is to configure the proper attribute release. And as I say, this is pretty much something that most of the universities should just have, because it's based on RNS, referred RNS, plus the SHACOM organization. But you can find all the details on the link there. And the next one, this is possibly the new part, is to add the European student identifier, so that can be released as part of the information that the IDP releases to the Erasmus Plus services via EduGame. But all this should be fairly simple and should be possible to get done by August 2021. And as usual, for any problems, actually, I would really encourage people to read the documentation and to send us feedback. We have got also some feedback already, but it's good because when we put the documentation together, it was clear in our mind, but it would be good if everything is also clear for those that have to eventually make use of that. This is all I have to say, so thank you very much for listening, and back to Davide.
Thank you both. Very nice presentation. I hope you can hear me well now. Yes, am I breaking? Yeah.
It is better than before.
Yes, it's
cool.
better than before.
Great. So let me also ask the club to join us. She's available because now I think it's time to panel, and there will be time to answer question about the presentations that you Lisha and Joachim gave about the My Academic ID and the Erasmus Student Card Initiative. But then we can also discuss a little bit more with the community about the of the more general topic of Erasmus Plus and how to support it from every party that is involved in this process. So one of the first things that we can say is the IDAS bridge is working, which is a nice news.
Actually, you see that we were not lying because Paolo tried and he just connected.
Oh yes, I also asked if he's already still available.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Thank you, Paolo.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay.
Before, so I do have a number of questions, some of your presentations, but before going into that, I will tell you that in the previous days, we had some that discussed about the European Student Identifier and also the change. We are now.
Sorry, Davide, your audio quality is very bad.
Once again.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you please switch off your camera because I think your PC is very slowly now.
Better? Any better?
Seems so.
Seems so. Okay. So. Okay. So as I was, so about.
But it's not working.
Yeah, I think better.
There are many interruptions, so it's not possible to understand you.
If we try to switch off all the cam, just to...
Probably possible. Okay. Try again, Davide.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Am I breaking? Okay. So as I was saying, we about this whole process and questions that came out of that in this that we had in the and so some of us participated to the discussion are now here with so maybe they want to. I understand that you cannot hear me well, probably. So let me try to log off and log.
Yes. I think it will be better. Oh. Okay, let me ask if there is any question on all presentations. Let me check the chat.
Hello again. I hope you can hear me now and that you can see me.
Looks fine. Cannot see you.
Yeah, just taking some time. Yes, so I'm back. I hope this time without any breaking, and you can hear me well. So very quickly, I was just trying to tell you that we had this discussion in the previous days, and then emerged from that discussion on how to best integrate the this new program, the Erasmus Plus, with the current students in the days. So basically, a lot of questions were related to how to manage the incoming students, the outgoing ones. Although this is also an interesting topic. So I see there's some difficulty in this.
Sì, Davide, ancora sorry, it's still not working very well, but if you try to do the questions and then we leave to speak the answers.
Okay. So first of all, I have a question about the yes, I can also type them in the chat. So it's about the IDES. So what if we have an incoming student that identified himself or herself through IDES to access, for example, the online learning agreement, and so how then can transmit the European student identifier by the European student identifier, given that IDES obviously it will not be for the student at identity. So did you envision to, for example, connect the student university as an attribute authority or anything like that?
Actually, Davide, this is a very good question. I don't know if everybody could understand that, but the question is about if you come in via IDES. IDES basically tells that I am Licia Florio and I have an EAD. It doesn't say anything about me being a student because IDES doesn't know. So how do we get the European student identifier transported? And we are indeed, this is part of the work that is now being done in the EDSSI project, and this requires account linking. So the problem is that in the moment in which you don't use your home organization IDP, the only information that you can get is the name, the email address, and yeah, pretty much this is all, because that IDP cannot provide any other information. Now, what we are looking at together with the UF, because they are operating the services, is how we get the other informations, and basically how do we link either the account the student may have already as part of their own organization, or at a different way how to retrieve this information. One of the proposals on the tables at the moment that is being discussed with the national officers is, say that there is a school, for instance, a vocational school that wants to participate in Erasmus, but they will, well, most likely they don't have an IDP, they will never have an IDP. How do we get the information basically about the SI on those? And we are looking at ways where there is some sort of accreditation done by the Erasmus officers, for instance, where we can get then the identifier generated for these cases. But as you can imagine, those have to be really limited numbers, otherwise the whole process becomes very cumbersome. So short answer is identity linking for those that have an online identity at their universities, and for the others we are looking for a different alternative to still get the SI.
Thank you, Alicia. So this is also this can also be used to provide a way to integrate those organizations that are outside EduGain, basically. And in the case an IDP is already registered in National Identity Federation and published to EduGain, then basically what you will do if the student will use EIDAS is to propose him or her to register again or to link their home organization account, right, with it, something like another registration flow, or yeah, a parallel, just one login basically. I see.
Correct.
A lot. I hope now it's if you can hear me. So looking at the questions that I was speaking about before, briefly, let me get documents that were produced by the working group I was. Should be this one. One of the main topic was about how the incoming students in the universities, and so this is maybe also for the IDEMDay agency. So one of the question is, what do we have to do with the ESI? So once that an incoming student has been, has the online learning agreement, and finally he or she came to the university where as an incoming student and as a foreign student, how can they use that, well, how the university can use that ESI, that European Student Identifier, to recognize them, and so what kind of modifications and updates and changes do they have to do to their system of records, take into account the I don't know if this has been envisioned, if there is any guidelines about this for the local institutions.
Davide, is this question for the NA, for me, for the agency?
Yes, exactly. Well, yeah, not just you, but yes, maybe the national agency is
Yes, indeed, because I don't know if there is some technical question underlying the one you made, because when the institutions receive incoming students, they will be then identified through the ESI in the OLA, in the Erasmus Without Paper network, and the hosting institution then will use the same document to register the credits, the grades, and the exams that the student undertakes in their own university while on mobility. So as then when the student comes back, the home university has already all the records in the document and can proceed then to the registration in the career of the students. So actually, for incoming mobility, the host university, in the moment that when they use already the OLA, then when they are already connecting the EWP, there's no other steps they will undergo for incoming mobility. For this example you just gave, I don't know if Licia wants to complement. I think it's needed to complement on that.
No, I think it's correct. Clearly, the Erasmus Plus services had to be modified to request this information and to basically receive this information. And this is part of the process that has happened. There is the new online learning agreement, the new Erasmus app, and the same plans are also to change the Erasmus Without Paper and so on. So this is one aspect. The institutions that receive students at that point don't have to do anything, because they will be, if they are participating in some form or shape, they will be able to consume the ESI. Whether because they are also sending students, so they know what to do. So this is pretty straightforward. In the moment in which they apply, either they are able to release all the attributes, release the ESI, therefore they are able to consume the ESI, or yeah, it's pretty much set, I think.
Okay.
I missed the question.
Yeah. Let me add just a brief detail. So I think that for the ESI to be transmitted to the hosting institution, there are basically one flow which is happening between the two institutions. So the outgoing institution and the hosting institution. The source institution and the hosting institution. And that is, as far as I understand, is already well managed by the program. What I was referring to, and this is also what was referred by the people that participated in that working group, is more about how to consume local services. Yes, exactly. Arianna Arona from the University of Milano is saying exactly the same thing. How to give access to local services to these incoming students, recognizing them by the ESI. So I understand that, as Claudia was saying before, entailed some updates and modifications on the technical level. This is something that has been considered at any level in the different from the different organizations that are now working on the program.
So Davide, this is a tricky question, because as you can imagine, there are how many institutions? 5,000 institutions, and they may all have different type of services in different technologies, etc. As part of EDSSI, we are looking at connecting more services, whether they should be also connecting to the My Academic ID, but we also want to find a very clear demarcation line for multiple reasons. First, because for universities, they have the National Federation to connect services for this purpose. And so they should use that and then enable access to the students in a federated manner, also for incoming students. There may be cases where there are services that are the same type of services that is really used by all students or by the majority of the students in different universities. So we may consider whether it makes sense to connect those services to my academic ID. But for the time being, the answer is what type of services a university wants to make available to a visiting student. It's a local policy, a local matter, and if they are if these services are available for all the other students in a federated manner, they should be able also to enable access for a guest student for a limited period of time. It's not something we don't think we should really get into the national policies and the national business very much. But maybe Joachim has some views.
Well, I think, Richard, you nailed it on the head. What we have been doing in My Community ID is sort of scoped to the Erasmus services. So technically speaking, there's one thing, but it's also, I think, legally speaking, these attributes are released for Erasmus Plus related services. However, I think we also in the consortium, we have seen from the very beginning on the huge potential that the implementation of, well, federated access on one side is, but also the implementation of the European Student ID, if I can enable new use cases, make the, especially, you know, COVID times, sort of different types of mobility taking place, access to e-learning platforms. Also the question of the European universities, as Claudia mentioned before, where we need to sort of combine not just physical mobility, but also have online mobility. So there's access to online learning platforms, to online platforms such as housing and so on and so forth is important. And the European Student Identifier can play a role there to allow you to identify incoming students. The whole problem is that the infrastructure, of course, needs to be scaled, and it needs to be sort of discussed and debated with stakeholders on where to connect to. Well, I don't think necessarily everything should go through the European part of the My Community ID platform. That is something that EduGain might be able to also resolve internally, if I can say so. Maybe it's not the right wording that I'm using here because I'm not an expert there. And then it's about making sure that you as institution, you also start changing this implementation policy so that you actually also release the European Student Identifier for other purposes than the Erasmus services. But that is, of course, a whole discussion that needs to happen from within the community that we cannot, let's say, manage from the beginning. It has been sort of easy to do it for the Erasmus Plus program because it's a requirement to go digital. We have this digital roadmap, we have the European Student Card Initiative, so we have sort of a legal background, a legal basis to implement all these changes. And we know that outside of this legal basis, there's a lot of services that could benefit the students. So now we need to sort of understand and discuss how this can happen in the future. Yeah. So very much in favor of it, but not sure how this will come about, and not sure how long this is going to take even.
And if I may add, actually, next to that, the most pressing issue now for universities, at least this is the feedback as we national agency got from our university, is the connection to the OLA system, to the Erasmus without paper, towards the approval of the online learning agreements. This is the most pressing issues, especially for institutions that we use own internal system developed in-house or developed by third-party providers, because they are waiting for the final development of the final version of the APIs to then work for their development in order to be ready for June. And everyone has to be ready in all Europe, in all participating countries, and we know that some institutions in Italy are ready, for instance, for some of some departments, some faculties. So really, it's a transition moment, but the process is. It will be a success if every institution invests into it and investigate within itself how to connect to the system. So this is the most pressing issues at the moment. in a way, we can take advantage of this peculiar moment we are living, while mobilities will not start as we are used to, because they will slowly start again in the first semester of 2021. So we expect students to be mobile in September, October. So we need to be ready with a smaller amount of mobilities at the moment.
Thanks a lot for the answers. And yeah, so basically, from what I understand on the ESI, that will be at the local level, the integration with possibly the system of records and the management of the career at the local level maybe will come later. I don't know. Is the question any news from the chat or from the people attending? I see someone is so. While we wait for some other questions to come from that, for Paolo, although I'm not exactly sure how this relates to the Erasmus Plus, but it may be. So, and one of the things that I would like to understand if from Paolo is if he knows about other member states that has, as Italy, possibly multiple identifiers mapping to the identifier. And if yes, if he knows, I mean, if you have any strategy to suggest on how to deal with it.
Okay, if I understood well, your question, Davide, is about if I know if other member states have multiple identities and how they manage it in order to avoid multiple representation for the same user. Is it correct?
As Italy has, basically.
Yeah. Okay, so according to the list of notified authentication scheme, there are some other member states that notified multiple identification scheme, and some of them use a strategy to unify the European authentication. So even if you use a different authentication system from the outside of your country, you will be seen as a single user. Unfortunately, in Italy, the decision was to use the speed code as unique identifier, with the problem that an Italian user can be recognized in Europe with 10 unique identity personal identifier. A solution was already present in the beginning of the project, because from the technical point of view, using the fiscal code as a unique identifier was immediate, but from the privacy point of view, the Italian privacy officer told us you cannot use the fiscal code as personal identifier in Europe, even if, also if it is in the digest mode. So we received a note, and we were not able to do anything. Not clear why, but we received a note. And this caused all the problem that we have now.
For this, can I ask why there is not any account linking at speed or carta d'identità elettronica level for exposing our Italian users as a unique user to European
services
partners?
Okay, so if you want to have a linking between multiple identities to a single one, the node should be able to know everything about the user, and we don't want to have we don't want to manage personal information within the node. So in the current status, the node is a pass-through element, so it doesn't collect anything about user. So it is just a bridge that receives the authentication request from speed. He translates it in IDAS and send it to the other country. That's it. Furthermore, all the SAML messages are managed in an encrypted way, so there is no way to inspect the content of the messages.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Paolo. It was very clear. I think that this problem has also somehow been managed by the My Academic ID managers, and because in that case, the node is responsible. Well, the proxy is managing some personal information, because you have to do, I mean, it's a stateful component, because obviously if you're going to do some account linking,
well, but also, Davide, we had to do that anyway because, yeah, otherwise we couldn't provide these unique interfaces to all services. Then we would end up in the chaotic situation that IDAS is in now. Well, chaotic for some countries, for some others. Yes. It's not.
So, do you have any strategy to cope with academic ID proxy level? I mean, what if, for example, in the case of an Italian student with that maybe he or she does not have multiple speed codes, but card and a speed identity. So do you have any strategy to merge also
Actually, this is news to me, that Italy is so creative, but this is something that we'll have to take into account. Obviously, but I suppose that the same process applies in the moment in which you allow account linking between my EID and my academic account. Then if I log in again, the system will ask me if I have other account. Still, in fact, I also sent a note when I heard about this. I said, "Oops, we have to cater for more identifiers coming from some countries via IDAS."
Yes, this is something that needs to be managed, I think.
Yes.
I think there is also a question. I don't know if Joachim actually wanted to add anything, but I think there is a question from the chat that is about the publishers and the use of, or well, not just publisher, editorial platforms for students. Let me just read it. Many universities subscribe to such products and they cost a lot. Can we expect in the near future a common access platform to editorial repositories with a reduction of public expenditure and more advantages for students? This is a question from Egidio Incelli from ICU. I don't know if anyone. one?
I mean, I don't know, because when I saw the questions, I thought, I don't think the problem is only about the platform, but it's also what the provider charges you. And whether maybe you can say that you may get a discount if you have between X users or more. So I'm not sure. It's not only the platform.
I'm thinking, sorry for using the chat, but I'm not alone in the office right now. I wanted, my idea was, and this since I was a student, my idea was of having a national or European buying platform for such products in order to reduce the public expenditure. Now every university is subscribing for itself, and this costs a lot to the educational system in Italy, and I think abroad too. And so I think it would be a great advantage for our students and also for our universities if there was the possibility to subscribe as a network, as a university network to all the main publishing platforms, instead of having all these different contracts, which are very expensive. And I know for sure they are very expensive because many libraries, academic libraries and university libraries are cutting their expenditure because they cannot afford periodicals, journals, and I remember that JSTOR or Per Se or other platforms are very useful for us. I was in humanities, of course, while mathematics and other branches of our academic sector are more open to open access solutions. Human sciences are not so prone to open access solutions, and this is a very big problem. In Italian journals are particularly allergic to computer science too, so you have to reach a physical volume in order to read it. But this was my idea, and I'm thinking about the future, maybe not the near future, but the far future, because public expenditure is always a problem. And it is, and I always found very absurd the fact that we are paying our researchers to write papers that we have to buy a second time to read. This is very strange. So this was my, just to explain what I was trying to ask.
Thank you, Egidio, for making it very clear. Let me just add that I don't know if we have any initiative at the European level, but I do know that we do have a group, the so-called Cruicare group, that is trying to do that job. I mean, create collective contract at the national level for Italy. It is not always successful, but they are trying to. And there is also a mailing list in the IDEM Federation that is exactly about this kind of topic. So I think could be interesting to also try to start a discussion about this there. But I don't know if anyone in the panel wants to add anything about this topic.
Well, I can just say a few words which are more of a personal opinion, because that's not something that we do on a daily basis. But definitely, I think we should. There was actually an article recently, I think it was on Times Higher Education or something like this, where we're comparing the solutions between commercial publishing platforms and open access platforms, and well, how actually higher education should take these matters a bit more in their own hands, and making sure that on one side we don't spend too much money on being able to publish on these platforms, but also B, that we make it open access. And that is, of course, a whole debate that I think needs to happen, well, within each institution, because you mentioned it yourself that some areas are more allergic to this sort of open access elements, but also, of course, needs to have a coordinated effort. And I think what Davide just said, that you coordinate that on a national level, at Italian level, is something very important, so that you also have sort of power towards these publishing platforms to be able to, well, impose your view and not be just one of the many clients that you have.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Egidio, for your question, and thank you, Joachim, for your for that. I don't know if we have any other questions that is coming from the chat, or if anyone wants to add anything right now. Otherwise, I would leave the floor to Claudia Battista. I would first of all thank all the speakers for the very nice session, and I would leave the floor to Claudia Battista for the conclusion of the workshop.
Thank you, Davide. Thank you to all. So let me start with thanks to my colleagues Davide Vaghetti, Marco Malavolti, and Barbara Monticini. They are the IDEM people in GAR, and so AAI people in GAR and in Italy. I want to thank you all the participants to this 21 event, IDEMDay event, for the active participation and interaction, even if in this special modality and completely remote modality. Of course, we want to thank you, all the speakers, internal to our community, but especially to the external speaker who were very important, very interesting discussion on these arguments. And so, and finally, I want to thank you all the colleagues in the backstage who were very kind and very professional in supporting us in the organization and in the on live event. So thank you very much, and see you next time, hoping not remotely, but having the possibility to see each other in the same room and discussing also in front of a coffee and in the corridors how we prefer to do if possible. So thank you to all, and bye-bye next time.
Arrivederci a tutti.